All right, very good evening, everybody. Welcome to this strategy class wherein I'll try to help you figure out why do we translate in our heads. This is a question that a lot of students come up with whenever we are learning reasoning or whenever we are learning how to solve critical reasoning questions or reading comprehension questions, wherein they tell me that, sir, हमारा आधा टाइम तो ये फिगर आउट करने में चला जाता है कि बात किस चीज़ की हो रही है, right? And simultaneously and similarly, what happens is when you're appearing for group discussions, for personal interviews, if you see, none of us are native speakers, right? And all of us come from different backgrounds. We're either brought up on different regional languages or Hindi, right? So what happens is, first we have a thought, we frame it up in our own language, be it Tamil, Bangla, Kannada, or Hindi for that matter. First, we phrase it up in our language of preference, then we translate it in English, and then we structure a sentence. And more often than not, it is a very tuta futa sentence, right? And similarly, whenever we're watching a film, we're reading a book, we're trying to solve a critical reasoning passage or a reading comprehension passage. First, we read something that is written or that is given to us in English, right? Then we translate it in our regional language or in our or in Hindi or any language whatsoever that we are comfortable with, a language of preference basically. For translate करने के बाद, that is when we try and understand, okay, this is what it means, this is what we're trying to figure out, this is what the assumption is, this is what the premise is, this is what the conclusion is. Ab let's figure out what is the task of question and move on, so on and so forth. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? So there's a lot of research that has gone into this, and this video essentially will help you figure out why we do that and how we can identify a few tips and tricks. How can we identify a few patterns that will help us make use of the process, make use of this process of translation, and better ourselves at English, and better our proficiency at English, and better our fluency at English. Right? That's essentially why I'm making this video. All right. Just to give you a brief about myself, I am Prankur Arora. I am a published author, right? I'm a published author. I hold advanced certifications in facilitation from an American organization known as Leadership Management International, which is perhaps the world's largest organization working in the domain of leadership. And I've been a trainer, a coach in the domains of communication for a long, long time now. I've worked with a lot of organizations on different aspects of communication, be it verbal or non-verbal, written, uh, oral, you name it, I've done it when it comes to communication, right? So let's try and figure out now why that happens, right? Why do we translate whatever it is that we try to read, whatever it is that we try to speak, when it comes to the English language or any language for that matter, not just English? This research methodology came up with the basis for translation when it comes to any and every language in the world. Okay, right? What happens is that our brain, it is divided into two aspects, right? Our brain is divided into two aspects. Number one is the system one memory, right? This is what we call it, the system one memory. That is the first part. And then there's the system two memory, right? So we have system one memory and system two memory. Now with system one memory, the idea is that this is the memory that we make use of when we're trying to focus a lot, when we're trying to learn something new, right? And system 2 memory is memory that works on autopilot, right? I'll give you an example. You just learn to drive a car, right? When you're sitting in the car for the very first time, you're learning from a driving school, right? Your mind is focusing on n number of things, right? Because you're scared, you don't want to crash the car, plus you're trying to learn the ropes, right? So you focus on anything and everything, right? You're very cognizant of the speed at which the car is moving. अगर आपको आपका इंस्ट्रक्टर बैक करने को बोल दे, तब तो ऐसे जान मुंह में आ जाती है, because you're trying to focus on the side view mirror, the rear view mirror, right? If you've got a sensor at the back of your car, your ears are focused on the sound that it starts making, as in when you come close to an obstacle. If you've got a video camera in your car, right, that is giving you the feed at the back of the car, you're focusing on that as well. You're focusing on the gear, you're focusing on the clutch, you're focusing on the accelerator. There's so many things that you're trying to do, right? So when your brain is focusing on so many different things, right, it is breaking stuff down and it is focusing on each and everything. That is when you're making use of your system 1 memory, right? But when you've been driving for 10 long years, right, and you sit in a new car, even then, your muscle memory has it intact. You know how to drive, you can drive in any car whatsoever. That is when you'll make use of your system 2 memory, right? That is what happens. Now imagine that you've learnt driving in India, and suddenly these are not the COVID times anymore. You travel to the United States of America, right? You travel to the United States of America, and there in India, see, we drive on the left hand side of the road, right? In the US, it's the opposite, it's on the right hand side, right? So then what happens is, you first, for the first few moments, for the first few days, you focus on the system 1 memory, right? Because थोड़े time के लिए you have that discomfort, right? But then, as in when you've done it, as in when you've done it well, you know how to do it, you are able to break the complex tasks down into fairly easy steps. That is when you come down to the system 2 memory, right? So that is the difference, right? Now the same thing happens with when you're learning how to play an instrument, right? शुरुआत में you're focusing on the system 1 memory because you're learning it note by note, right? You're learning everything note by note. But when you've been learning that instrument for a while, and you go for a concert, and the lead singer of the band just asks who in the audience plays the electric guitar, and you're like, I do it. You go get up onto the stage and you start playing as if you've been doing it for 50 long years, right? Why? Because then it is a part of your uh, your bodily mechanism. Yeah, it is a part of your muscle memory. You can do it in your sleep, right? Though I will not recommend it, but you can do it in your sleep, right? That is when you're making use of your system 2 memory. The same thing happens with swimming, the same thing happens with any activity in the world. When you're learning it, right, when you're in the initial stage, you are at the system 1 memory. And when you've been doing it for a long time, it is a part of your system 2 memory, right? So the same thing happens with language. All right, the same thing happens with language. When it happens with any and every activity in the world, obviously it will happen with language as well, right? And I'll extend this line now. Now what happens is, let's divide this into different pins, right? Perhaps that will give us, so system 2 memory ke liye I'm making these pins, right? So imagine that this is your brain, right? This is one part of your brain, which is your system 2 memory, right? And then there's another part of your brain, which is your system 1 memory, right? There's another part of your brain, which is your system 1 memory. Now what happens is, the language of our preference, right, the language that we are conditioned in, that is a part of our system 2 memory. All right, and even foreign words that you've been hearing for quite a long time. For example, since I've watched quite a lot of TV shows, I know what ni hao means, even though I've never been to China. But I know ni hao in Chinese is hello, right? But I don't know any other word for from the Chinese language, right? But I know what ni hao means. So ni hao will also be a part of my system 2 memory. Similarly, all the fairly easy words that I've come across in my life, they're a part of my system 2 memory. But कोई भी नई चीज आएगी, so first it will become a part of my system 1 memory. Now for example, what happens is, अगर आपने कोई नया word बोला, say for example's sake, I take this word called flummoxed, right? I take this word called flummoxed. Now flummoxed means surprised. Flummoxed means that you are bewildered, right? That is the meaning of flummoxed. Now when I'm reading this word for the very first time, it will become a part of my system 1 memory, right? सो व्हाट हैपेंस इज जब हम कोई भी बात कर रहे होते हैं, हम कुछ भी इंटरप्रिटेशन कर रहे होते हैं, तो पहले ऑटोमेटिकली आवर ब्रेन गोज टू द सिस्टम टू मेमोरी टू सर्च फॉर दैट वर्ड. Now, because it will not find it here, it goes to the system one memory wherein I am trying to figure out a new word, wherein I am trying to figure out something new. And then, after I've figured it out, it comes back to my system to memory. So that is why it takes us a long time. That is why it is not happening in even though by a long time I don't mean it will take me 1 hour. But what I mean is that when we are talking in real time, sometimes when you're learning something new or you're trying to interpret something that is not very easily perceivable to you, it takes say 5 seconds more or 10 seconds more. Why? Because there is this activity going on where your brain goes to system to memory, it does not find anything, then it goes to the system one memory. That is where it deciphers the meaning, and then it comes back to the system to memory. So this back and forth takes a bit of time, right? It brings it back to the system to memory, right? Now for example, पहली बार मैंने flummox का मीनिंग पढ़ा, मेरे को नहीं पता. Right now, after understanding its meaning, I read it a little bit more, I look it up on Google, then tomorrow I start using it in my day-to-day conversations, wherein I say, oh man, I did not know the answers to those questions in the mock exam, I was flummoxed by them, right? Or for example, the Indian government right now is flummoxed by the resilience of the farmers who are protesting about their rights, right? So now when I start using it in my day to day conversations, right, when I start using the word flummoxed in my day to day conversations, it becomes a part of my system to memory. So now I don't have to worry about it being a new term anymore. It is a part of my vocabulary. It is a part of my system to memory. Whenever I come across this word flummoxed, I will know it for a fact. Okay. Now comes the $1,000,000 question. Right? Now comes the $1,000,000 question. How many times? How many times do I have to read up a word or learn a word for it to become a part of my system to memory, for my brain not trying to translate it into the Hindi language, for my brain not thinking अच्छा फ्लमक्स का मतलब आश्चर्यचकित होता है, right? ऐसा. Now what is the number? What is the number? Right? The number is 7 times. As simple as that. For you to start learning a word, for it to become a part of your system to memory, you have to use the word, you have to use that phrase in your conversations about 7 times. Now this number can vary a little bit, it is not really set in stone. For some it could be 3 to 4, for some it could be 10, but on an average, right, on average it just give me a moment. Yeah, on average, it will take you 7 times. 7 times you have to repeat a word in your day to day speak for it to become a part of your system to memory, for your brain not trying to translate what the sentence really means when you come across that particular word or that particular phrase. So, what I would recommend is, obviously I don't want you to start mugging up the dictionary and using जो जैसे हमारे पेरेंट्स नहीं बोलते थे जब बचपन में, they would rather that we become proficient at English. They would be like कि every day pick up one word from the dictionary and use it in your and make a sentence with it and learn up the meaning and use it in your day-to-day conversations. No, that is not what I would recommend. Obviously I would rather that you enrich your vocabulary in an organic fashion. But whenever you're scrolling on the internet, whenever you're reading a blog piece, whenever you're watching a film, you're watching a television show, or you solved a mock exam on the Unacademy platform, right? And you come across this interesting phrase or this interesting idiom or that word, try to use it in your day-to-day conversations, right? Because the more you use it in your day-to-day conversations, the more easily it becomes a part of your, or the more quickly it becomes a part of your system to memory. And you don't have to rely on your system one memory whenever you come across that particular word, that particular phrase, or that particular idiom. All right. So this is what I wanted to essentially share with you guys. Now you know the trick. Now you know the trick. Now you know why your brain translates, and you know the trick to circumvent it. Not circumvent it really, but to rather manipulate the entire process. You know कि अच्छा 7 बार मेरे को ये नया word पढ़ने का है, 7 बार मेरे को ये नया phrase पढ़ने का है और यूज करने का है, तभी वो मेरे सिस्टम टू में जाएगा. तो आपको पता है अब ट्रिक, right? So try to use it, try to incorporate it in your learning schedule, in your study schedule. All right, now allow me to quickly tell you a little bit about the Unacademy platform. Guys, on the platform, we have features such as enablement of live classes on a daily basis, wherein we make use of the chat box where you can ask your questions, spark off a discussion, ask your doubts. The question answers, they are conducted in the form of live polls, right? Wherein you're always competing for a place on the leaderboard when you participate in those live polls. We regularly conduct tests and quizzes on the platform as well, the idea of which is to help you develop perspective about your learning journey, to help you understand where you are versus where you want to be in that learning journey. For example, we give you analysis and data such as the time you're spending on a para-jumbles question versus a time that you're spending on a critical reasoning question, right? So with that data, you can tweak your learning journey. You can understand what you're really good at, what you're really proficient at, and where you have a lot of room for improvement. We have a lot of structured courses on the platform as well. The idea of these structured courses is that they're audited by subject matter experts, right? And with one subscription you get unlimited access to it all. These are the various subscription models. You can clearly see as the time period goes up, the cost of the subscription per month goes down dramatically. And if you use my name Prankur, you will get an extra 10% off on any of the subscriptions that you go for, right? These are a few toppers, people who performed and who basically you know just utilize the Unacademy platform to the best of their abilities and scored really well this time uh, in the CAT exam. A few batches that we are launching nowadays, right? You can start learning from all of these educators for free. Understand that you don't have to pay right now. What you can do is subscribe to these educators, look up their special classes. You can start learning from them for free, figure out whether you're able to gel well with them, figure out whether you're able to develop that chemistry with these guys. And if you think that you will benefit from their teaching acumen, then you can subscribe and enroll to their batches as well. We regularly conduct the Unacademy Combat exam. The previous one was on the 7th of February. Right now, we're skipping a week perhaps, and then the next one would be, say, on the 21st, right? But you would get notified shortly, and you can unlock these exams using my name, right? So, you can unlock these exams using my name or any of the special classes that you want to check out, even if it is not mine and it is some other educators. You can unlock it using my name, Prankur, right? That's the idea. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you benefited out of this video, out of the trick that I shared with you, out of the little tip that I shared with you. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys again. Bye bye.